All right, all right. Welcome. It's Dan Lear, the Amyloidosis Whisperer. And today we are talking about the disease amyloidosis, the disease that affects thousands of people a year, maybe hundreds of thousands, yet is oftentimes undiagnosed, which leads to big challenges later. So first of all, what is amyloidosis? There are a couple of different types of amyloidosis, but I'll tell you about the type that I have. I was diagnosed in 2017 with what's called cardiac AL amyloidosis. And AL has to do with what's called light chain proteins. So essentially, these light chain proteins, which are derived from the bone marrow, go out into the bloodstream and they're supposed to do certain tasks. And hypothetically, let's just say that these light chain proteins have different shapes, circles, squares, triangles, etc. Well, some of my light chain proteins that come out are what are called malformed, and they are rogue. So instead of a square or a circle, they could be a squiggly line. So essentially, they're rogue proteins. They're called misfolded, is what they're called in the medical community. So they're misfolded proteins. So they go out into my bloodstream, and they're non-perishable and non-biodegradable. So they essentially just float around. The challenge with those proteins are they're sticky. And so those proteins stick onto various organs in your body, your heart, maybe your liver, maybe your GI tract. Maybe it starts with some in your nerves to get some nerve damage. And so for me specifically, those light chain proteins attach to my heart. So when I was having issues and I wasn't able to do the things that I was typically accustomed to doing, like working out and playing basketball, I was going to the cardiologist, and they're looking at the scan of my heart, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, you've got a thick heart." And so the response was, "Oh yeah, you've got an athlete's heart. You must have been an athlete when you were younger." And so, okay, that's great, but why is it that I'm not able to do the things that I used to do? And the response is, "Oh, you've got congestive heart failure." Well, maybe I do have congestive heart failure, but there's a reason for that. And so the typical reason on the drop down menu is, "Oh, I'm not eating well and I don't exercise and it runs in the family." Well, none of those were accurate. So, of course, they don't have any answer. So, cardiac amyloidosis have to do with these extra light chain proteins that are floating around in my body, affixing to my heart, which causes the congestive heart failure. So this particular channel in this broadcast is really for educational purposes to help people understand what amyloidosis is. And if you know somebody or you're listening to this and you're experiencing challenges of doing the things you used to do, but you've always been in shape and they're just telling you that you've got congestive heart failure and you're like, "Oh, okay." There's something more to it, because if you don't take the appropriate steps to deal with this amyloidosis, the prognosis is not good. So without effective treatment, it's not going to be a pleasant or a very long future for you. So again, so there's multiple different, how do you want to call it, symptoms. One is the congestive heart failure. Other is just tiredness, body soreness. Some people have carpal tunnel issues on one or both hands. Could be some neuropathy. Essentially, the big one is if you've been diagnosed with congestive heart failure, yet you maybe look like me, and I mean just thin, athletic, and they're saying that you've got congestive heart failure, then that's an issue. So I'm 6'8", weigh about 210 pounds. I weigh 200 now, but when I was diagnosed, I was probably 210. And I was in tremendous shape prior to going in and finding out I had congestive heart failure. So again, the medical community is just now, well, it's been 8 years since I've been diagnosed. So people are finding it nowadays, but many don't. There's only maybe a handful of what's called centers of excellence around the country where you can get diagnosed. So, that is the key, is early diagnosis. I got diagnosed in 2017 after spending, oh my God, 2 years of going to various cardiologists and multiple other doctors. But 5 or 6 years before that, just seeing my body start to go downhill and not really understanding what was going on until I was just like, hey, there's something going on here. So it started off for me with, I had AFib. Little did I know that the AFib was most likely caused from the amyloidosis. So I went for AFib, and I got what's called an ablation to correct the AFib, which lasted for a little while, but it didn't affect how I felt. So I was still feeling the same way, but now I had what's called sinus rhythm. My blood or my heart rate was normal, if you will. That's called sinus rhythm. So I was in sinus rhythm, but I was still not feeling well, and still going to specialists and whatnot, and telling me I've got congestive heart failure. And so again, that just after 2.5 years, I believe I was in Las Vegas. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. Went to 3 different cardiologists, and only the last one of them, and he was the best one of them. He said that there's something. Well, many of them, not only cardiologists, but I went to every other kind of specialist that you can imagine, and all of them said pretty much the same thing. There's something going on with you, but I don't know what. And so they would prescribe things and do their normal tests that their drop-down menu said, but I wasn't getting any. I wasn't getting any good feedback. So the final cardiologist I went to in Las Vegas, he said there's something called amyloidosis, but I'm not able to treat that. And so I said, can you make me an appointment at somewhere that you feel that can, like a John Hopkins or a Mayo Clinic? And so he gave me a referral and made me an appointment for Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. And I was fired up about that. Oh, and previous to that too, I also got admitted I got for the USC Keck Medical. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go to USC. It's going to be great. I was going back and forth to USC for about 6 weeks. Couldn't tell me anything. Same old thing. But this guy, he was an older guy. And he said, there's something going on with you. I don't know what it is. But geez, there's something called amyloidosis. And, we don't know how to treat it here. And he just kind of mentioned it, but really didn't push it. But I was still, thinking that I was going to find a solution. And so that happened previous to my 3rd cardiologist in Las Vegas mentioned that I had amyloidosis. So he had told me that I had amyloidosis, or that you should check it out. So he made that appointment for me, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. And so oftentimes I would have this incredible, this heart rate that was just all over the place. It was just like all over the map. Like it was back into AFib, but it was irregular and arrhythmatic, and it was high, and it was really pounding out through my heart. And there were many times in the past that I didn't go to sleep at night because I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up. And in the previous to that, I would just go to the emergency room, and then they would say, oh yeah, well, then of course my heart would slow down, and they would run tests, and same old thing, just fine, must just had some kind of an attack. So anyway, I remember I had this appointment at the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester. And so I was going through one of those situations where my heart was just going crazy, and I was afraid to go to sleep. So I said, screw it. I got on literally a red eye that night. I went to bed fairly early, and evidently it was early enough to get a red eye. So I went and took this red eye to Minneapolis. And I don't remember the timeline of it, but I landed, and it was obviously early in the morning, like real early. And I got a rental car and drove to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And I show up, I've got a backpack, and it's freaking freezing. I've got a hood on. The air is flying around. I've got a video of that. And I walked in there to the emergency room, and these people thought I was nuts, right? They're like, you came here with a backpack, and I was hoping they would just admit me and keep me. And so, they thought I was a little nuts, but they ran me through the tests like I asked them to. I said, dudes, just run me through the test, dude. I don't want to die. I think I'm going to die if I go to sleep. So just, it sounds crazy to say that, but that's how desperate you are in a situation where you don't know what's going on, and you're going through years of this testing and being undiagnosed and knowing your body well enough that something's up. So they ran the tests, and a few hours later, they're like, look, there's definitely something wrong with you. But acutely, there's nothing going to happen. You're not going to die tonight. They said, but keep your appointment and come back in a couple of weeks and they'll see you. So that made me feel good for the moment. And I went, flew back home and went back in a couple of weeks. And I was so excited. And so I went there, and I was fortunate enough. My doctor that they had assigned me to was this guy named Dr. Maury Gertz. And he looked at me right in the eye, and he goes, man, I think I know what you have, but I need to run some clinical tests. And so one of the symptoms of amyloidosis is you get this purple up in your eye, almost like you got hit in a fight, except for having like a black eye down here. It's up here. And so I'd always have purpura all the time. I didn't know what it was. I just thought, I had no idea what was going on. And that's one of the symptoms. He looked right at me and said, I think I know what you have. And what's ironic about that is when I went in for my ablation, I had purpura at the same time. And I remember they pulled off the tape off of my eyes, and I had even more purpura. And they're like, oh, geez, we must have put the tape on too tight. So that's just how clueless the whole journey was. So anyway, he ran some tests. Oh man, so many tests, but it was just like boom, boom, boom. It was so organized, and I felt so good about it. And I think on the third or fourth day, he's like, yep, you've got what's called cardiac amyloidosis, and you will need to start chemotherapy right away. So come back here in a week. He asked me if I wanted to get in a drug trial as well. And I said, sure. So we started a drug trial, and I started out with this cocktail called Cybor D, which is three different treatments, if you will. I don't remember what they are. Cy stands for one, Bor stands for something else, and D, I remember, is dexamethasone, which I took as well. So I did that for a while, and then my neuropathy was getting a little worse, so we changed to what's called Revlimid, and that didn't work at all. I went into AFib, and it was awful. And then the last one we went to, I forgot what it was called. I'll look it up. And I went on that one for a while. And then I just my light chain proteins had come down from 16 all the way down to like 3.5 or something. And normal is 2.6, depending on where you get diagnosed. And so it never, even on the Cybor D, it was around the lower threes. I never got down to normal, but it was close. But I was starting to, I felt like my neuropathy was worsening, and my doctor, Dr. Gertz, was like, hey, I don't see any improvement, but we've reached a kind of a plateau. You're not in the quote unquote normal zone, but you're just above it. So, he goes, I feel good about taking you off. Let's put you on this other drug. And it was called venetoclax or Venclexta. It was actually a drug designed for lymphomic leukemia, but used in an off-brand way. It was great for me. I have this unique thing called chromosome 1114 translocation. And so it's strange. The top of the chromosomes actually switch tops. So my chromosome number 11 and number 14 literally switch the tops. Don't know how it happens. I don't think they know how it happens, but because of that, I was very, how do you want to say it? That drug venetoclax or Venclexta was very specific for me, and it helped just maintain where I am. So it was just like, it was just right for me. So I've been on that drug ever since 2019. And so here I am today. So, I run this channel on X called Amyloidosis Whisperer. You can reach me on X. Just type in Amyloidosis Whisperer, or I believe it's Dan Lear __. And this is where you can find me doing live broadcasts. I'm bringing on other patients. I'm bringing on doctors, and a great place to get educated. If you have amyloidosis, it's a great place to get educated. Or if you think you know somebody who might have amyloidosis, please send them over. Because when I first got diagnosed, I have a big family, and everybody was, concerned and wanted to know what was going on. So rather than calling them every time, what I did is I made these YouTube videos, and I would just make a YouTube video on my amyloidosis journey. And so, I would go in and I'd set up the camera, do the blood draw, and walk into the doctor's office and have, videotape the doctor. Or when I was done with the treatment, I would give a kind of a video summary of what transpired. And so I would post that every day or every treatment on YouTube. And if you just go to YouTube and put in the search bar, Dan Lear, Danlier, just like it says in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and then type in the word amyloidosis, you will find my channel. And if you go down to the videos, the playlists, you'll find treatments. And if you click that, you'll go through all the treatments, and it's amazing. So what transpired during that time is, and I did it organically because I didn't even know what amyloidosis was or what was going on. I only did it for my family. And then what happened is I started getting all these people following me that had amyloidosis, or their parents had amyloidosis, or their uncle or their aunt. And they would not call me. They would send me messages on YouTube, and they would say, "Hey, would you please talk to my uncle? He watches your videos and you're the only one that gives him hope." Or, "Hey, can you talk to my mom? You're the only one that gives her hope." And so I would have these conversations with people on a weekly, if not, multiple a month basis, and just giving people hope. And the reason why is I was going to all these treatments in a positive manner. I expected that I would do well, and I was expecting to live. And so I was going through this process with a positive attitude, as if it was just a road bump in my life. And so anyway, you can find me there on YouTube by going to Dan Lear amyloidosis. Just type that in the search, you'll find it there. And on Facebook as well, Dan Lear, and then My Amyloidosis Journey, I believe that's what it's called. I've got a Facebook page called it's called My Amyloidosis Journey. And of course, amyloidosis is spelled right below there. And of course, you can find me right here on X. If you're on X, then you're finding me. And if you're on Instagram, it's just on my Dan Lear Instagram page. All right, y'all. Awesome. Look forward to chatting in the future. I just made this recording, so I'll be starting to do some live stuff. So keep in touch. Let's make this happen. I'm Dan Lear, the Amyloidosis Whisperer, and I'm excited to make things happen. See ya.